Hello, this is James Hunter, and today I'm going to be interviewing April Demille. And for those of you who maybe haven't watched some of my videos before on my channel, the reason I have this channel is because I like to interview people from different backgrounds, beliefs about things that are happening as far as existential issues, spiritual, philosophy stuff, or maybe just a simple question of what's really going on here, right? A lot of people have their opinions, and that's going to vary based on your background, your life experience, and so on. My personal background is, 23, 24 years in mental health. I'm a psychotherapist, fitness person, and I've always had a gestalt or holistic way of looking at people when we look at wellness. And then, of course, I have my spiritual issues, right? So I look at us as mind, body, yep, and that's a shameless bicep shot, I know, and soul and spirit, right? So I have a lot of respect for the totality of everything, right? So let's just put that right there. But then we get into all these other issues, what's outside of this, right? The physical, material world and all that. So without me talking too long in terms of why I do the videos, I think you get the idea. I want to ask April Demille some flexible questions today. And just so everybody knows, she is a psychic life coach, and I will be putting her information in the description with this video. So April, let me kind of just get into our first question. I like to ask people, not just kind of like how you arrived at what you do today. A lot of people, it can be a process, a journey, and then maybe right away. But we hear the term psychic used a lot. It can be used in different meanings or understandings. In fact, in psychology, they use the word psychic, like psychic energy, psychology, right? So it depends on the context. So when we hear this, a lot of times people might confuse it as all one the same, but I've started learning myself that no, there can be different categories of psychic abilities that people may have. So what, maybe you can tell us, like I said, who you are, what you do, and then some of these differences, maybe the ones you've discovered, and maybe we can just start with that for people who are watching this video.
Yeah, so for anyone who's watching, my name's April Demille. I'm a mentor, a life coach, and a psychic medium. I think my tag on there still says April Davis. I haven't changed my name. I haven't done all the stuff. So I'm still working on that, but just to ease some confusion. So yeah, I specialize in grief reconstruction and toxic relationship recovery, especially from narcissists. But I also get to teach people how to train their own abilities and tap into their own unique talents. And so for me, psychic is such a broad term, and it's been, I almost want to say the word's kind of been smeared by Hollywood. So it's not my favorite word anymore, but it is a pretty well understood word. So for me, psychic just really comes down to, using senses outside of our physical body, but also using our physical body to tap into those quantum fields, if that makes sense. So for me, it's kind of like, there's psychic, there's channeling, there's medium, there's all the different CLAIR abilities. And some people have a couple, some people have one, some people have all, everybody's different. And so, yeah, that's what I would say about that.
Cool. I can appreciate that. So the thing is like, yeah, we use our senses, kind of like senses outside the body, but at the same time, the body itself is a bit of a conduit, a tool, right? So sure, it's kind of everything is kind of connected. And you mentioned different abilities, different people. So you might sometimes you hear people like, "Oh, my gut instinct told me something about this person, but I didn't listen to it, and I should have," right? So maybe intuition, a feeling about.
Yeah, so that's kind of like CLAIR. It's like CLAIR cognizance or CLAIR sentience, where you just kind of have this feeling, like this gut feeling and this knowing that, yeah, you could call it intuition. That's usually what people chalk it up to.
Yes, ma'am. And you know what? You can look at other systems, like religious systems, where they write about things that are trying to interpret what happens. So like if for people who are Christians, they might talk about a word of knowledge, like in the book of Corinthians, a word of knowledge. I got a word of knowledge from the Holy Spirit that's telling me something, right?
Right.
Or prophecy, right? Yes. Maybe I see something. So you see this in kind of other things. People like to put it in boxes and give it labels and then say, oh, it's only in this box. But really, it's more of a general truth within our reality and how things work. I've had this so-called, you want to call it a word of knowledge, a information. I've had those moments, and it was very, very real. And I just knew that it stood out from something that's any different than just a thought. Hey, this is something that's happening, right? And then I'm like, wow, do I listen to it? And then you're kind of feel skeptical maybe, but then later on you realize, hey, that was something. Like dreams. I talk about dreams in my videos. I have lucid dreams. And there's a difference between, okay, you're just doing dream work at night, and it might be a bit of a randomness based on what's going on in your life. But then there's other dreams, very different. There's something happening here. And when it happens, you just know, hey, this is different. And then there'll be a punctuating point in the dream that's to solidify a message, and then you immediately wake up. I've had those moments. And to me, like, okay, that's not just a dream, that's a message, right?
No, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because I actually just did a podcast the other day, because I specialize in dream discovery also. And we get so much information from our subconscious when we're sleeping. So I think that's really, really valid that you would talk about that.
Yes, ma'am. So cool deal. All right. Well, let me kind of pull up some of the questions here that I want to ask you. And these are all flexible, of course. So, okay. So let me ask you, let's get into kind of like being a helper person, because that's what we're about. We try to help people. And I'm going to ask you about the toxic relationships here in a bit, and the narcissist. I can talk about that stuff all day, because I help people all the time. Because one of the dimensions of our wellness could be relationships, right? And if that's out of whack, it can undermine the whole person. So we'll definitely talk about this toxic relationship and narcissist here in a little while. But let me ask you this. Okay. So, dependent, like I mentioned earlier, on where you come from, everybody's going to have a different opinion about what's going to be some of the more important variables that contribute to a person's overall wellness or well-being or health. So if you're a minister, a preacher, or somebody who's in the mystical field or spiritual field, you're going to say that the only thing really matters is your spiritual life and your relationship with people want to call it God, the collective consciousness, the universe, whatever people want to call it. That's what matters the most, is that connection, right? And they're not wrong, right? But if there's somebody else who, let's say, that's a sleep neurologist, that they're experts on people needing to get good sleep, they might say, hey, everything else I can appreciate, but if you're not sleeping, all that other stuff ain't gonna be so important. You gotta sleep. And you know what? They're not wrong either. Sleep's very important. So I think you get the point. Depending on where you come from, you're gonna have a particular focus. These things are important. Other stuff, yeah, I get it. But you know what? If we're gonna start somewhere, let's start working on this stuff. If you wanna help the whole person be healthy, whatever that means for you. So it's a very loose, general, kind of flexible question. What are your thoughts on that? What do you think is important when people are
Well, I think it's good that you brought up the different aspects and what everybody finds important or valuable. When we were all growing up, we have our own conditions, our own resources, or lack thereof, knowledge, wisdom, whatever. And so in that sense, nobody's ever right or wrong in what they're doing. They're all just like, if you just figure that everybody's just right, you know what I mean? In the grand scheme of things, everybody's doing the best they can, given all the circumstances. And so that's kind of what I think about that. Is that kind of what you meant?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's a good answer. And the good thing about my interviews with people, it's not about whether I think you're.
No, for sure.
It's all flexible. I want to hear what people have to say. So technically there's not a
no right or wrong.
Exactly. That's 100%. Because, and I'm glad you brought this right or wrong, because I want to get into one of my pet peeves. I just cracked my knuckles, right? All right.
Like you're going to a fight.
I'm ready to
get into it.
I'm ready to put some work in. Here we go. And it kind of, I guess, annoys me is a better feel word, right? I can say it pisses me off, right? But check it out. Annoyed is more healthier, right? Okay. So here, I'm going to get into the nitty gritty.
Okay.
Because I have friends throughout my life that believe many things. I know people from all walks of life and works, if you will, Freudian slip, right? That have all kinds of beliefs. I have friends that believe in Bigfoot, friends that believe in life on other planets, people that think beyond just a three-dimensional experience, other dimensions, and said belief systems, right?
Yeah, I happen to be one of those friends.
That's right. And that's one of the reasons you're here, right? It's awesome. Yes. Check it out. I'm going somewhere with this, so follow me with this. Check it out. So here's the deal. I have no issue with that. I've always been a curious and open-minded person that intuitively has been like, hey, there's things happening here, but there is certain types of narratives that are endorsed and supported to control a belief system of what's acceptable. And I'm going to point out some double standards, because here's the deal. I grew up going to a Christian church. It was called First Baptist Church. I got dunked in the water twice to make sure I was baptized, right? So hey, no problem. Anybody here's a Christian, you grew up in the church, I'm not here to pick on you, and I'm not here to disrespect your right to believe what you want. But here's where I'm going, is that you have people that when we look at other individuals, whether it's other cultures, in fact, in my profession, we have a thing called cultural competency. So being a culturally competent therapist counselor, I am to be mindful and respectful that people can have other beliefs, whether they're Jewish, Buddhist, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, agnostic, atheist, so on. My job to help them is not to tell them what's right for them. It's not my place to do that. Cultural competency. So even within my industry, there is some respect for this idea that, yeah, people might believe certain things. You get the idea. But here's where the double standard comes in. If you're a Christian, there's no problem that you can be totally comfortable that your neighbor's a Christian and believes in their heart that there was a man named Jesus Christ. Well, Christ is a title, the anointed one. There was this man, Jesus, and he walked on water. He took a few loaves of fish and bread and multiplied them to feed thousands of people. He turned water into wine, which, by the way, is his first miracle. He kept the party going, right? He turned that water into wine at a wedding. And he rose Lazarus from the dead, which he wasn't even worried about it. Hey, Lazarus, he's just sleeping. Don't worry about it. He's going to get up, right? So you get the idea. Jesus does miraculous things. And if my neighbor believes that, I ain't got a problem with him. He's a Christian. I respect him.
Yeah.
But here we go. Here it comes. But if another person says, I believe in UFOs, I believe there could be life on other planets. There's more than just us, or maybe there's people in other realities and dimensions, or God forbid, there's an entity or creature that we call Bigfoot. If you believe that stuff, hey, wait a minute, buddy. I think there's something wrong with you. There might be some cuckoo stuff going on here, right? So this is a double standard, and it's irrational. It's irrational. Because
what a better way to keep people controlled.
Yeah, that's right. Well, if you're going to suspend your logic, if you're even using any kind of a logic, you're not being consistent, because you're okay with people believing that Muhammad flew to the moon on a winged horse and that Jesus walked on water, but you're going to be dismissive of somebody that says, hey, I believe I saw something in the woods when I was camping and I've never seen nothing like that before. Or maybe I've had other paranormal experience, right? So there are double standards. That's my point. So what's your thoughts on that, in my opinion? Do you ever see some of that?
Honestly, to me, it's all bullshit. Mm-hmm. Like all of it, no matter which way you look at it, is ego and fear-based. The whole idea of who's right and who's wrong, that is so egotistical. Yeah. And it is so energy draining. It's so fear-based that like, I don't even feed into that. Yeah. Everybody has the right to believe what they believe based on their own experiences. And if you are a bully and want to tear other people down for that, that's on you. Yeah. That just means that you have a lot of inner turmoil and things going on that you have to work through, and you're projecting that out into the world. So I would say, are you wrong for that? No, you're doing the best you can given your resources too. But do you have work to do? Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And by the way, just so you know, when people have these double standards, it's not like I get mad at them. If anything, I just listen.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, I listen. And if anything, I will point out the discrepancies with the logic. And then usually people, it challenges them to think, and maybe some of that cognitive dissonance will pop in, and or maybe it doesn't. So yeah, and I have a few things I want to actually ask about some of this paranormal stuff here in a little bit. But let me ask you this. Okay, I ask all my guests this. This is the $1 billion question. Real quick, anecdotal experience of my own that gave me an answer, which doesn't mean my answer is the only one. So I'm raising it to the $1 billion question. We used to say the $1 million question, but technically $1 million ain't quite what it used to be in today's world, right? So I'm going to say $1 billion question. All right.
Okay, we'll go with that one.
That's right. So here's $1 billion, but I would appreciate $1 million. I'm not going to.
Me too. When you find it, give some to me.
Hey, I'll take $100,000, right? But anyways, here we go. All right. What's the meaning of life? Why are we here? What the hell's going on? Right. So when I was younger, lucid dreams all the time. And because I was young and more, a bit more immature, and today I'm probably still immature in some areas, but when I was younger, I had a bunch more. So if I have a lucid dream and I realize I'm awake in a dream and that anything technically is possible because I'm in a dream state, yeah, I'm not, there's really no actual material consequences. I can fly, which I fly a lot, like Superman. If somebody tries to shoot me, I know I'm not going to die. It's a dream. So I know it's just a dream. And because I know it's a dream, I can either manifest situations, make things happen. So when I was a kid, it was like entertainment. Oh, I'm going to be Superman. I'm going to do this or that. All the things I know I couldn't get away with in the actual awake world state. I'm going to do it now because it's a dream. So it's all entertainment. It's like a kid in a candy store. So and I'll just leave it at that. Kid in a candy store in a dream, right? So check it out. So as I got older, I realized that, wait a minute, this is an opportunity. When I'm dreaming and I become awake and I'm meeting these entities, characters, individuals, whatever you want to call them, this is an opportunity to have interactions, ask questions. And so I started doing stuff like that. And a lot of times, sometimes I call them cameos. So I have cameos of people from my past. It might be a professor, an important person, or somebody I might have respected, or maybe even somebody that you thought of as antagonistic. They might pop up in a dream and there they are. And sometimes you have characters that you have no idea they are. It's like they're just there. Like, who is this, right? So I became lucid. I think it was in my 30s. And I had been telling myself, the next time I'm lucid again, I need to take advantage of that. I need to ask some questions. And I did. So I asked a lady, I'm like, hey, it's like, can you tell me what's the meaning of life? And I literally put my hands on her shoulders politely, like to get her attention. Mm-hmm. What's going on? What's the meaning of life? Why are we here? And when I was doing this, she wasn't like taken aback. She wasn't surprised. She didn't feel put off by it. It's almost like she kind of understood. Mm-hmm. And then she looked at me as if I should already know. And she matter-of-factly says, while looking me in the eye, challenges are your milk, is what she said. Yep. And what does milk do for a baby?
It nurtures.
It gives it strength. That's right.
Yeah, it nurtures your growth.
So we're here for challenges, to grow and to be stronger. And she said, all these challenges are milk. That's why you're here.
That's right. True.
And that's it. And then, so anyways, so yeah, I don't know where I was going after that.
Well, I think you were asking me the billion dollar question.
The $1 billion question. Yes.
Yeah.
What the hell do you think's going on in your opinion? Why are we here? What the hell's going on?
So I think the meaning of life is love. Love is the meaning of life. It is why we were all here being expressed. We are all each a human expression of our God, our creative source, whatever your belief is. And it is all about us having these experiences. If you look at Earth as almost like a purgatory, we're just coming here to do some shit, do some awesome stuff, and then we move on. That's really what it is. Yeah. And in order to do those awesome things, we have to have growth, just like, it's what we do. And so even the things that suck and they hurt, it's still love because it's helping us propel to other things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very well. Okay. Well, awesome. Yeah. So I appreciate your answer for why we're here. We're here for love. And I'm not going to argue with that. In fact, Jesus paz. That's Spanish for Jesus peace, right? I went to school with a guy. I get a little random sometimes. You can blame it on the label ADHD, right? But anyways, so when I was in high school, I played football, and there was this young man. He's my age now. His name was Jesus, and his last name was Paz. Jesus Paz. So the football coaches, who happened to be Hispanic as well, would joke with him and call him Jesus peace. Jesus peace, get over here, right? Jesus Paz. So anyways, so this idea about love, I'm remembering the whole point of that, right? My brain is coming back together again. Okay. Yeah, I would agree with you. In fact, the entity, the incarnation, the person that we read about called Jesus, they were always trying to legalistically prosecute him and find reasons to get him.
Always.
So they asked him a trick question. So you can read the Gospels, people. I'm not going to find the scripture for you. It's there. So, hey, you being a master and being very wise, the laws and all this stuff. Can you tell us what is the greatest commandment in law? And they're thinking, we got him now. If he picks one, he's going to undermine every other law that's important. And Jesus, discerning their hearts, knowing that they were out to get him, answered them. But he says, I answer you, but this. The greatest and first law is just to love God with all your heart. And the second law is to love your neighbor as you'd love yourself. And on these two hangs everything else. The laws, the prophets all hang on that right there. Boom.
Yeah.
So he smashed it with that one answer, and they never asked him anything ever again. So yeah, I agree with you. Love is very important as far as a huge thing. So I appreciate that. Thank you. All right. So let me get into maybe some what people might call the woo-woo, not necessarily all
You can go for it.
all woo-woo, but
yeah.
But what does woo-woo technically mean anyways, to make sure I use that word? Because when you talk about like, okay.
I think people just, when we're talking about psychic, astrology, all the quantum stuff, people call it the woo-woos, whatever. Right. Well, and I've coined the term woo-woo worker because I'm definitely that.
That's right. Well, because sometimes I have people, what's a good book to read? And I might say The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz.
That is a good book.
Yeah. And somebody read it and says, well, that book's a bit woo-woo. I'm like, okay, whatever. But it's also got cognitive stuff in it too, right?
Right.
So, yeah. So there you go. All right. So, okay, let me ask you some stuff that maybe is paranormal, woo-woo, whatever works. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
So to the extent, and this also goes with my question, do you have any metaphysical, paranormal experiences yourself? I have a few of my own.
I mean, 43 years of it.
Yeah.
My whole entire life.
Hey, I've had my own. I've seen ghosts. I've had other things happen I can talk about later. I've mentioned in other videos that defy what we call physics. So, okay. Yeah. All right. So let me ask you this. Okay. So Bigfoot.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to talk about Bigfoot. And just as a disclaimer, anyone watching this video, if you're a big Bigfoot believer, the way I'm about to talk about is not to be antagonistic or make any fun. It has to do with just my own natural curiosity. And yeah, some people think about some weird things because I'm just a curious everyday thing, right? Thinker about practical things. All right. So people have the debates. Is Bigfoot, is it terrestrial? Meaning that maybe he's an offshoot of a hominid that was before the human, and then it got caught in between, and then it still lives out there somewhere. Maybe it's a pre-hominid. Here, theories like that. It's totally terrestrial. So maybe there's some intelligence, and because it has some intelligence, it's smart enough to realize humans ain't good for it, so it tries to hide. So you got that argument, okay. But then there's the other argument that Bigfoot, Sasquatch is not terrestrial, might be from another planet, other dimension, and it's kind of like a visitor in between. I can appreciate all that and not dismissive of any of it. I've watched a lot of documentaries actually about this stuff. So here's the deal. Here's me. People got all these questions, and what the hell do I think about? I'm like, okay, Bigfoot's out Sasquatching around out in the forest. And I'm thinking, okay, he's a big, tall entity. He's supposed to be big and tall. He's got all this, he's got this fur. He or she's a big it, right? So I'm thinking, okay, there's practical stuff happening in life. So we look at us, we're humans, we have everyday needs. So I'm thinking, okay, what is the context with Sasquatch, Bigfoot? What the hell are they doing there in the day? How do they entertain themselves? What about activities of daily living? And I made a joke one time in a Bigfoot Believers Facebook page, and some people were okay with it and some got offended. But I'm like, okay, how does Bigfoot wipe his ass? He's tall, he's big, he's got all the fur. And this is a practical question. I'm just saying, how would he do that? And of course, people are like, what? Well, animals don't care about that. But okay. So anyways, does he need to brush his teeth? Does he need to brush his teeth? What does he do for entertainment? What do they have relationships that are meaningful? So I am like, basically, what's Bigfoot's lifestyle? What's important to Bigfoot, Sasquatch? What do they think of us? So in other words, the mundane stuff. What does her routine look like? What the hell's going on? Right. Yeah, that's what I'm curious about.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's not really one I've spent a lot of time on. I channel Bigfoot often. I've had physical experiences with Bigfoot. And to me, it's one of those things I don't give a fuck about it either. Yeah. I'm just like, I don't go there. I ask about other questions. Things
I'll ask the other questions. But that's just me being a bit.
So for one, the first thing I would say, time is not a real construct.
Okay.
So do they get bored? Absolutely not. Yeah. That is a human issue. It's a human thing. They do not live in the same time frame that we do. They live in a dimension that's free from those limits, if that makes sense. Okay. So they are interdimensional. They do warp. They do dematerialize. They are from another planet called Maldek. That planet was destroyed, and they are a genetically engineered being just like we are.
Okay.
So are we.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So genetically engineered, like the ancient aliens theorists that basically there's intervention to give us a bit of a boost. It
Yeah.
makes sense. There's a book called The Naked Ape. We're the naked ape. We are the most ill-equipped to survive if left to our own devices. Our skin doesn't tolerate radiation very well from the sun. We don't have claws or so left to our own devices. If it's just a physical competition, we have no chance. We have zero chance. So it's our intelligence and awareness and our insight that allows us to cooperate as a collective community and all that we work together. And then of course, our ability to create gives us that advantage for sure. So you mentioned time. I agree with you too. So, and this was not even related to the Bigfoot question, but I've always had this feeling that time is the past, right now, and the future. It's all at the same time for other beings, so they can step in and out, dependent. And for whatever it's worth, the older I've gotten, I'm 51. It's like remembering the more I know, and it's like, oh, of course, right? So as I've gotten older, it's just like, it's not like I read something and learned it. It's just more of a feeling. I start have this intuition that, hey, wait a minute, everything is happening, past, present, the future. I always use a quote, what you do today, that's who you'll be tomorrow, kind of like a, inspirational quote. But yeah, I agree. Time, it's all at once. Now here we experience things on a linear, sequential way of thinking about it because of just the, our reality, if you will. So yeah, time, and this idea of the other dimensions and so on. I think it's Carl Sagan. Carl Sagan talked about if you had two-dimensional beings, right? They only experience reality in two dimensions. Maybe it's like flat, like length and width, but they had no dimension of depth or height. If that's the only dimensions they can experience reality in, they wouldn't be equipped to relate to somebody who's a 3D creature, right? So our three dimensions and how we interact, for them, they wouldn't be able to understand us from what they're equipped with, right? So he kind of used that example, right? And it made sense. So
that's like why we can't understand some of the Bigfoot stuff. I would say that that's a pretty good foundation, actually.
Okay. Yeah.
Because it's hard for our human minds to fathom the truth of what eternity actually is, and what all these other realms and vibrations and beings. It's so far. It's such a far stretch for our human limits, if you will.
All right. Well, if you don't mind me asking, maybe ask questions about the metaphysical, paranormal stuff some more.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I wanted to add in there about Bigfoot real quick, I would actually say, if you have questions about the mundane stuff, I would actually ask them yourself. Like if you're open to that connection, you can get those answers on your own also. One of the things that I do know, though, that I did ask was, I have never experienced people talk about Bigfoot having this awful smell. I have never had that experience when I'm around them. So for me, I actually did ask about that. I was like, why do people keep saying you fucking smell bad? Like, what is this about? And so the answer I got was this: when they are warping through different realms, there is a chemical reaction that happens when they go from physical to lesser physical or non-physical. In between those movements, in this chemical reaction, that is where that smell comes from. And I'm no scientist, so I don't know anything about that shit. But when they said that to me, I was like, holy shit, that 100% makes sense.
Could make sense.
I'll just leave you with that. That's the only thing like I know that I did ask about, as far as like, you know what I mean? The other stuff I haven't never even really asked about that.
Yeah. Okay. I just adjusted my camera. All right. So no, I can appreciate that. And I know it's silly stuff.
No, it's not silly. Your questions aren't silly. A lot of people probably have those questions, but I think because I'm already so used to having these experiences, my mind doesn't go there.
Well, Howard Stern back in the 80s and 90s would ask those kind of questions, like, would I really want to ask celebrities? So anyways, okay, so check this out. All right. So the smell. Oh, here's my tangential thought I was going to throw in real quick. So I used to work for an agency. I'll just say agency. It was a government one. Okay. I was a counselor there, and every counselor. Oh, well, I'll be kind of as vague as I can. So they had like there was staff that worked there. I won't describe the context of the relationship. So there was an individual that well, just to put it bluntly, they smelt bad. They smelt really bad. It was obvious they smelt bad. And it's kind of like the elephant in the room, or, hey, the emperor has no clothes, but nobody wants to say anything.
Okay.
And so finally, what ended up happening, the person that supervised that person had to have the awkward conversation because people were complaining to the supervisor of that person. Hey, this individual stinks really bad, man. You need to talk to this person. So they did. And this person had been taking these garlic supplements, so to the extent that it was causing it was causing them to have this odorous, foul smell. That's what it was, right? So anyways, so Bigfoot, Sasquatch is like, yeah, it's the interdimensional thing. Here's what's happening. Yeah, that's what's happening in case you want to know, right? So there you go.
Yeah. Because a lot of people are like, oh, they're dirty animals, whatever. Well, they're, first of all, they're not animals. They are a being like we are.
Yeah, genetically created.
Or genetically modified. I want to say genetically modified, just like we have been.
Okay, very well.
And so the smell isn't because they're a dirty animal or whatnot, what have you. It's because the smell that they're talking about most often is because they're warping and this chemical reaction is happening.
Cool. All right. Well, I have some questions. So let me ask you about let's kind of premise it, because I know, depending on your experience, whether it be with interdimensional beings, whether they be people who might be considered in the UFO category or just strictly interdimensional, and so on. Let me ask you this, to the extent, because I know you just said you can ask them questions. Let me ask some stuff, not to be controversial. I'm not making any assumptions about what you believe, and I'm not necessarily telling anybody what I believe. Okay. But so we think about space and what we're told things are. Okay, so what would some of these entities say about people who get in fights about whether the earth is flat or a sphere? Me personally, I'll be honest with you. I could care less. I could care less.
They don't care either.
Yeah.
They don't care either.
Yeah.
Again, that's all ego and fear-based, who's right, who's wrong. And those entities are so vibrational, like not in that. Like they're out of that vibration. So they're already in a vibration where it's all oneness, all love. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong. It's so they don't care about that.
Hey,
that's all human stuff.
Well, I can appreciate it. And I'm just bringing it up because, let's be honest, you see all kinds of industries just based on arguments. Sometimes you got flat earther movies, documentaries, and then you got the other people arguing, no, it's a sphere, and then they both will put out evidence. So I watch this stuff. I'll be honest with you, it's just entertainment to me, sometimes, just to hear the people to debate stuff. But I'm like, okay, whether the earth is flat or it's an oblate spheroid, what are the implications, one or the other, if it's flat or spheroid? Now, people might argue, well, it's because they're trying to hide the truth, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But what does that have to do with who you are, what you need to do to get your life right, to live well and have the best life possible? Is that contingent on whether the earth is flat or a sphere? So distractions, ego, like you said, So
and to some people, they might think it's needed information, because then that means they've been gaslit and lied to their whole life.
But there you go.
Even still, that's entertainment for humans, for us. Those conversations and those kinds of growth. But anything outside of us, they're just like, hey, cool, they're learning. Yay, they're learning. Good job. That's all they're doing. They're just supporting us and being our biggest cheerleaders.
Awesome. And I love that way of looking at it versus a more antagonistic interpretation that we get from religion sometimes, right? It's all
and I believe me, I was raised with a Southern Baptist mom and then LDS dad. So I had it all, and then I studied religion also while I was going to school. So I believe in Jesus. I accepted Jesus as my savior too. I have to believe in Jesus because I've seen him. So there's that.
Awesome. Well, let me make a quick note, because I'm pretty sure I had a Jesus question. All right. How can you have a paranormal type spiritual discussion and not bring up Jesus, right? All right, here we go. So let me ask you this. All right. Once again, no assumptions one way or the other. All right. So if I could connect, and maybe I can, who knows? I've never tried. If I could have a conversation with an entity that has a much broader perspective and ability to see what this is here, I would ask them, all right, have we been to the moon or not? Everybody fights about that. Have we been to the moon or not? Was that maybe something that, well, a lot of people might be agnostic about it.
I would say yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when they download information, I'm getting a yes. Yes, we have.
Okay.
We have explored space.
Okay, sure.
But I have a comment about your connecting.
Yeah.
You already know that you can connect because you did it in dreams. So please ask those questions.
Yeah.
Well, that's available for you.
Yes, ma'am. That just may be my medium that works for me. Yeah.
For sure.
That's right. Well,
I've gotten a lot of information in my own life that way. And that's why I've been recording my dreams for 30 years. So
awesome. Yeah. Well, some people are a bit agnostic. Well, maybe we did land the moon. Maybe we didn't. I don't like to attack people and call them conspiracy theorists or put judgments on people, because I've looked at things and I can see why people might feel skeptical.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because of distrust of governments and things like that.
Just distrust in general.
Yeah, exactly. And like, what would be the political advantage to say, hey, we're the first ones that got there, right, during a critical time in history. Now, what contributes rather to people feeling skeptical is like, okay, well, back then the computer, we had all these vacuum tubes. I mean, the cell phones we have these days are, let me get my screen. Yeah, our cell phones are far superior than what was available back then. But yet we piloted a ship to the moon, right? So a lot of the skeptical people will say, well, okay, why have we not returned to the moon again? Now, me being open-minded, I'm not a black or white thinker. It's either black or it's white. There's no shades of gray. I'm shades of gray. So possibly it's not a technology issue why we haven't went back, or whether it was fate. What if we have been there before, but maybe there's reasons why we don't need to go back right now? Or
I was going to say, we're already getting the information we need.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's not really a need for it.
Yeah. Well, that's how I think, but I just point this out because there's people watching this video that they might have.
So there are people in the government that are very aware of the extraterrestrial life out there and working together as like brothers, basically. And so without getting into any more controversial whatever, this is just information that's given to me from my guides.
Yes.
And so a lot of that information I think we already have.
Yeah.
And I keep hearing it's a political movement. So like they're not going back also because of a political reason.
Sure. Yeah. Makes sense. I've always been a shades of gray thinker. I'm not like this all or nothing or one way or the other. And of course you hear things like how certain things might be compartmentalized within our systems of brokers or governments. Like a president is a temporary function. They might have 2 terms. That's it. They're gone. And then you have another president. So really the real power are the systems in place that have continuity of people that are just going to be there and they're handling things. So to the extent of what a president really has privilege to actually know, it may not be what we think, right? Even the president may not know what the full extent of our relationship with entities, aliens, other planets, and what that relationship is like as far as the influence of our evolving on this planet. I remember seeing a documentary about a video, and they showed it had something to do with a nuclear site, with silos or nuclear weapons, and there's some issue happening. I can't remember all the details, but they show these like spears, or like you can call them UFOs, that they become present and they're there, and then it just basically nullifies the nuclears, or like it shuts everything down, and then they fly out. Yeah. So there was an intervention. The belief is that's an intervention to stop those nukes from being able to work, basically. Okay. Yeah. We're not going to let you do that. Yeah. Okay. So So we've talked about a lot of different things. Is there anything in particular you might want to bring up in this video, by the way? I'm just kind of facilitating some questions to try to.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of preconceived notions about, aliens be confused with demons and what's Satan and what's not, and all that stuff. And again, I just want to touch base on the fact that no one's wrong in their beliefs at any given moment in time. But I don't, I was going somewhere with that.
You're fine.
I had a point. If it comes back, it comes back.
No, you brought up a good point, because that actually brings up something. So we're working together here. It's a team effort. So, all right. I saw a documentary, and that was the whole documentary, is basically, are aliens, to use that label, are they more paranormal versus they're actually beings from another world? Is it one or the other? They brought up, was it Aleister Crowley? How do you say that?
Yes, Aleister Crowley. Yes.
Aleister Crowley, yeah. So he talks about having a relationship with an entity being, and they're saying, okay, was this paranormal, or maybe he had a relationship with an interdimensional being, alien, whatever they're describing. There's even they talk about NASA to the extent it's involved with the occult or it isn't. So all these things, yeah, very good question. So
I think my whole point was like a lot of times people are so afraid of stretching that it's easier to just chalk things up as demonic and satanic.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of doing the same thing, because when I was growing up and I was conditioned by religion and all this control and fear-based stuff, we're products of our environment, right?
Yeah.
So I'm conditioned by that. So when I didn't understand things, I also was like, oh my God, is that a demon? What the fuck was that? Like, you don't know. And so I think that, in order for people to expand at a healthy pace, people have to be open to knowing that not everything is bad, negative, demonic, satanic, right?
Yep.
Like it doesn't have to be that way.
That's right. Hey, 100%. I agree with you. And I want to add something real quick, because it's kind of brings back to what you said earlier, the beginning of our discussion, is that, while there's things external that might be considered metaphysical, paranormal, at the same time, the body is a way of interfacing, if you will. You can call it a tool. So let me ask you, if you don't mind, what are your opinions about Ouija board? I actually
just got asked this question the other day.
Well, check it out. Check it out, because I'm an outside the box kind of a person.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna buy a freaking Ouija board and be all like a fanboy. Oh, I gotta have the Ouija board. Why? Because my belief is it's really about us. So I created and personalized, I call it a communication spirit board. Yes, there's the alphabet, numbers, yes, no, hello. So I kind of personalized it and made it my own thing.
Right.
And I have used it. My opinion is that's real. Yeah. But then I put it away. I've had some experience with that. So I experimented with it. So my opinion is that there is something there. We're the conduit, but the board is kind of like a tool that to use to like communicate. But it's really us that's doing it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's no different than people that use tuning forks or a pendulum or tarot cards, or when I pick up my pen and I want to do automatic writing. What it is that people are afraid of is there's been this stigma put on a Ouija boards because bad things can happen, but you could put that same stigma on my fucking pen.
Yeah.
So it's really about what your intention is when you're pulling out that Ouija board. If you're going into it with a lot of fear, then now you're manifesting a lot of fear. That's right. All it really comes down to.
Yeah. Hey, Ouija boards are evil and dangerous. Don't you dare touch them. But at the same time, you're going to go watch horror movies that scare the hell out of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. That's
exactly. Right. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. So the point is, I'm just validating your logic. I agree.
Yeah. So it's, yes, exactly.
Awesome. Okay. All right. So we still got some time here. And I appreciate your time, by the way. I do. Thank you so much. Let me ask you, let's wrap it back to you brought up toxic relationships and narcissism.
Oh yeah, that's fun stuff. Yeah, real fun stuff.
So here we go. One of the things I help people with that have been victimized in codependent type relationships on manipulator, narcissist type individuals, I weaponize them with some tools.
Yes, that's what I do. Right. I think we both have that in common.
That's right. So one of the tools I weaponize them is to not think of judging people as a broad brush as it's all the same. In fact, I have a video on my other YouTube channel that, yes, you can freaking judge people. Hell yeah, you can. And let me explain. Because the word judgment gets a negative connotation slapped on it like it's a bad thing.
Well, I think judgment gets confused with discernment a lot.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We're gonna and thank you for that. You're right. So you're kind of already reading my mind, right? So check it out. Here's the deal. Because a lot of people, they don't have the insight to this, and I want to help them with the insight. So here's the deal. Yeah, I get it. We don't want to judge somebody on a superficial level or be pretentious. Like, oh, I'm not gonna. You're a janitor, or the way you dress, or your behavior and lifestyle is beneath me. Yeah, that's the unhealthy judgment. That's
judgment.
Yeah, that's that's the impediment to have an understanding with people versus something that's going to cause separation. That's not good. And I agree. I don't promote that type of judgment. However, having boundaries with people to be assertive when you start realizing that boundaries are merely just the rules by how relationships work, and also the rules by which people can have access to you in your life. And I'm going to tell everyone in this video watching this, and it's like a broken record if you watch my other videos, if you don't make it a point to set the rules with other people with how the relationship's going to work, they're going to do it for you by default.
Yeah,
that's right.
You're teaching them what you will allow.
That's right. So here's the punchline, if you will. So let's say somebody finally has enough, and they're going to call somebody out on the behavior that they feel uncomfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to attempt to set some boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
So what does a narcissist or gaslighter do? Oh, you're judging me. You're judging me. Only God can judge me. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a meme actually on Facebook. Only God can judge me. And then they show like the picture of God saying, you're an asshole, right? So, yeah. So, all right. Okay. First of all, they're trying to gaslight you and get you to confuse all one broad brush what judgment means. Also, the message is they want to convince you and to program you to believe that anytime you need to advocate for yourself and your needs, that you're doing something wrong. That's the message to you. You are doing something wrong anytime you try to stick up for yourself or respect yourself. That is wrong. So they are trying to create in you the emotion of guilt, because emotions are similar to anxiety. They have a purpose to communicate to us, to compel us into action or to make decisions. And this can be a huge problem, because there's distinctions, important ones, between emotions. I would much rather somebody feel annoyed and feel disrespected with a toxic person, because that's good. It's a good thing. Those emotions are saying, this is not right. I need to do something. But if somebody can convince you that you're doing something wrong and you feel guilty, what's the implication of that? I've done something wrong. And because of that, you're not likely to do anything about the situation.
Right.
And now they got you
broken down.
That's right. Yeah. So they try to interject themselves as a source of your validation that you need the approval of. And this is a very crafty.
Well, and that's what creates trauma bonding. That's how it happens.
That's right. So the point is, hell yeah, it's okay to freaking judge people. It's called good judgment and discernment. And that's the problem. There's too many people out there not judging the shit out of people, right? To be a little bit.
Right. And like we talked about, there's discernment and judgment, and they're very different. And sometimes, you have to interchange the two, especially if you come from, brokenness and abuse and all those things. And it's very confusing. But you brought up a good point. Rules, right? House rules are a thing, not just with other people, but even in the psychic world. You are always in charge of what is going on in your freaking life. So if a ghost comes tapping me on the shoulder and says, hey, I want to talk to you, and I'm like, get the fuck out. I don't want to talk to you right now. That's it. It's no different than with other people. Rules are important. Those boundaries keep you going, keep you safe.
Yeah. I put some psychic paranormal boundaries in place. Actually, it was probably within the last year. So a person, while still alive in this context, like you and I are physically bodily here, in the dream, it was that person emerging from a blue, almost like a blue plasma type of a wall. Like you're looking at like blue, like this fluid thing. It's like a blue, I guess not midnight blue, but maybe more like a cold blue color, whatever that means. It's like this really impressive blue, right? So anyways, so they emerge from it. It's the person. I know who it is. I know exactly who it is. And they're wanting to, I guess they're kind of trying to apologize or explain something. And my immediate understanding in the moment was, this is them from the future after they're dead. Even though when I'm awake, they're still alive. They're trying to come back from the future sense of themselves having passed on. They want to tell me something, but there was just something in me. I wasn't ready for it. I didn't want to hear it. So I dismissed them.
Yes.
And they had to go. Yeah.
Yep. That's right. And I would say that you're pretty accurate. What happens is our higher self is so evolved that we're functioning in a place that time doesn't exist. Right. Yeah. So they can come back and do whatever we want. Yeah. When we're not bound by those limits. But yes, you can dismiss whatever you want. That's true.
Yeah. And you know what? I'll be honest. Maybe I did need to hear something, but I wasn't ready. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
So,
you get to decide that. That's part of your free will.
All righty then. Okay. Well, all right. So you work with people, right? You try to, as far as being a psychic life coach, and we've talked about some of your beliefs, right? About this world. We're here for love. We want to bring understanding and increase our collective well-being as humans. The question, what the hell's going on? Why are we here? I remember being probably 10, 11 years old and staring at the sky, and it was very red. And this was during the 80s, so I'm thinking nukes, like the Cold War. But it was just a red sky. And then I had this moment of the I am experience, looking at my hands, that I exist, and this epiphany of like, well, what's beyond? What is nothingness? What's beyond anything? And as this blowing my mind, I was kind of like that waking up moment as a little kid. As I've gotten older, I just have this sense of like, you can call it remembering, that you get more intuitive the older you get, in my opinion, for a lot of people. Some people get that very quick in life, and good for them. So we've talked about purpose and meaning, some of the things we think contribute to our overall self, right? So if you don't mind me asking, and whatever you feel comfortable with, I'll give an example of my question. I always ask people kind of like, maybe if you want to share a bit of yourself, how you get to where you're at. I'll be honest with you. I'm a psychotherapist in the mental health field, and a lot of assumptions are made about somebody who does that kind of work, right? But people who know me in my personal life are like, how the hell did you become a psychotherapist? They remember me as a kid, right? And in high school, college, right? So my answer to that is like, yeah, I mean, within a context, I can be a lot of things as a person, but my journey in life was kind of like an evolution. My collective experience of who I am now at my age makes me who I am.
Totally.
I couldn't be who I am right now in this moment without all the things that have happened to me. Even when I got licensed by the state of Texas initially, all those years, 22 years ago, 23 years ago, even then, I was way different because I didn't have the life experience yet to give me the insights I can have now, because I've lived all this time, right?
Yeah.
So the point is, I don't know, maybe if you want to share a little bit about the cumulative effect of your life and maybe how it's culminated to now, and the importance of that. And then maybe with younger people watching, to have this, maybe some patience. We all kind of struggle with purpose and meaning. I need everything now, or I need to know everything now, versus maybe just keep it simple. Yeah. Be present in the moment, be content with where you're at. And eventually, yeah, your life.
That's a really hard thing to do, to experience when you're going through abuse, but
yeah. Well, that's a whole nother issue. And
that's a whole nother thing. But I would say, I mean, I was born on, and when I say on, I have all the clairs. I'm a medium, a channel, psychic. I was born this way, just completely fully on. And I didn't come into a family that had other psychics or other, mediums before me. I was it. I was the change maker. And that put a lot of hardships on my physical body, my mental, emotional, all the things. From a very young age, I was seeing fairies, other beings, talking telepathically to other humans and animals, all the stuff. And I didn't understand any of it because it was just how I was. I was just born that way. I didn't know there was something different about me until I was roughly about the age of 4 or 5. And I started to realize, oh, they don't see the same people that I see. They're not seeing the things and then now it's chalked up to, well, now you bother us, go stay in your room. I had drug dealing parents, prostitute parents. Like, I didn't grow up in a good environment. So I went through a lot of that. And as I got older, I decided that, these things that were a part of who I am really sucked, because they made my life miserable, because everybody thought I was crazy and blah, 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 whatever. Right. So I started to believe that I had problems. So I just kind of shut it down to the best of my ability, or dimmed it, if you will, and tried to live out as normal of a path as I could. But then when my daughter died in 2012, like, all bets were off. My guides came to me and they're like, dude, you got to step out. Like, people need your help. It was kind of like a boof, like, just get out there, like a push. And so I came out as a public psychic in 2017, and it's just progressed from there. This is what I do. And I have a lot of experience from trauma and all the things, which is why I've also stepped into the mentor coach role.
Yes. And my sincere condolences for your loss, the trauma. Can only imagine, there's sympathy and there's empathy, and the differences are,
They're very different.
yeah. And unless you've been exactly or pretty darn close to what somebody has experienced, you're not going to know exactly what for them that felt like, right?
Sure.
But there's definitely like, hey man, you could imagine what that could be like. Is this that grief and the loss? I want us to add something to this, because it's back to what I was talking about earlier with double standards, because a lot of assumptions are made, and people ask me, well, you work in the mental health field. What do you think about people if they maybe hear something or have a belief? Is it automatically there's something wrong with them?
No.
I've always said no, I don't believe
No.
that, and I want to explain why. So here's the
Yeah.
deal. Well, let's say somebody's going through trauma. They live in a home with domestic violence, parents abusing drugs. And let's say maybe they have an imaginary friend, they hear from grandma, or they pray to Jesus, right? Are they going to, oh, well, no, poor little sweet little girl, she's praying to Jesus, and she thinks about her grandmother, right? No problem with that. But when people kind of deviate from what people feel comfortable with, they might be quick to say, oh, this person's psychotic, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's right. So I want to,
that's where that judgment comes in.
That's right. Well, judgment. And I want to differentiate. Okay. There is a clinical criteria where a person, let's say somebody hasn't slept in 3 or 4, 5 days because they've been on like methamphetamines. Is it possible because they have a metabolic disruption in the brain that they're unstable physiologically, and that they have they're having extrasensory perceptions that they might call hallucinations, whether it's visual, auditory. We know that can happen. Like when people are in a hospital and they put them under anesthesia, they'll have a delirium. A delirium is just a temporary metabolic disruption. It's fluctuating course, and what that means is it goes away once all that's out of them, and they're fine. So can that happen? Yes, that can happen. And even then, people might say, well, that's just opening their third eye or something like that, right? To use that term, right? But here's where I'm going to go. Before anybody passes judgment or makes an assessment, what you think about a person in terms of whether you believe them or not, here's the thing. You got to look at the overall presentation of a person.
For sure.
That's right. So if somebody is stable and pretty much all their life, whether it's relationships, living situation, their physical health, or their work, they're good. They have an awareness. They're on top of stuff. You get the idea. Who happens to have these paranormal beliefs, experiences? I don't have an issue with that. I know psychiatrists, psychologists, professors in colleges that have these beliefs. They have beliefs in the paranormal, ghosts, UFOs.
Well, technology.
Yeah. Right. So the point is, just because somebody has an experience by default isn't automatically like children. Oh, we need to put them on medication because they're seeing things. That's ridiculous, because you don't know for sure what the heck's going on. This is my opinion, of course, for anyone who's watching the video.
Well, and the world just wants to quiet what they don't know, what they don't understand. It's scary as fuck. So they're like, well, let's just quiet it down. That's
right. Now, that being said, can there be somebody who is unstable in their life that it would reason that, they have a mental illness, a mood disorder, adjustment disorder, traumas, and they need some help, they need some treatment? 100% that exists. And I'm not going to say that
it does. And I walked through that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I walked through that on my own too, because, I had the trauma and the instability. And so even though I could hear people talking to me and see dead spirits walking around in my room, even still, they could have thought I was troubled and they shoved medications at me. But here I am, sober as fuck since 2012, no alcohol, no drugs, no cigarettes. I was eating vegan, all the stuff, not even over the counter Tylenol, nothing. I went super holistic. So now what? Now what are you going to call it? I'm sorry. It's still, and then also it comes down to, cool, when they give me information and it's validated. Oh, am I crazy still? Like, how would I know this?
I always say, to keep it simple, the proof is in the pudding, right? So
for sure. The proof is in the person.
If you're living fine, who's to judge you, right? Who's to freaking judge you?
And is it okay that others are scared? Fine. Be scared. That's okay.
Yeah.
I ain't trying to prove myself to anyone.
Yeah. Well, there's double standards. So let's say if you're somebody who has a blue collar job, nothing. I've had many blue collar jobs in my life. Let's say somebody's a janitor who says that they can talk to a ghost or they saw a UFO. People can be judgmental. It's just somebody for janitor or maybe a trailer park, whatever. Some of that ego. But if a medical doctor steps on TV dressed up in a nice tie, he's good looking and says, I saw an unidentified aerial phenomenon thing. Well, he's a doctor. It must be true because
For sure.
appeal to authority. So I'm just putting that out there. There is a bit of a double standard in where we assign credibility, which I find disappointing.
There is. And I have experiences like that. I have two very good personal friends that happen to be very credible. Dr. Lisa Thompson is one.
I've met her. I had the interview.
And she's my alien friend. I have another friend. I don't know if you know this guy. This is Kiwoni.
I seen that picture.
So he's one of my buddies, and we talk several times a week. And he's a Sasquatch guru, and he's very credible too with all the professions and all that stuff. And I'm very good friends with these people. So it's different when somebody comes up there and they've got their master's degree and they've been professors and all this stuff, as opposed to, someone else that just walks up and says something. It's totally treated differently.
And I don't think that's right, in my opinion. No. I mean, think of a lot of the like Native American Indians, a lot of those very spiritual individuals that have a lot of insights about many things that didn't go through a formally recognized, you have this label or title, right? So you do see some appeal to authority stuff in terms of who we're willing to listen to. Jesus would have been considered ignorant. Who are you? You ignorant.
Yeah, with no formal training.
Now we know he's literate because he did read from the Torah. So we know he could read. The Apostle Paul was very educated because he was a Pharisees, actually. And
I think Luke was a doctor.
Yeah, that's right. So there wasn't many of the fishermen too, right? But back then, most people were illiterate and only had they had just had one name. You didn't have a surname unless you were like upper crust or somebody fancy. So anyways, I really appreciate your time. We still
no worries.
Okay. So I always ask all my guests, I try to, if you want to maybe ask or discuss anything else that maybe my brain hasn't remembered to maybe touch on in this video, and maybe some of the things you want to make sure that you can say to whoever watches this video, and maybe anybody who might reach out to you as well, as like contacting you. Are there some other things maybe you might want to say that you felt you haven't been able to say yet?
No, I mean, I can give you a collective message. I would just say in general for people it's okay to be afraid to stretch. Okay. It's okay to move through your comfort zone, give yourself time, give yourself space, but you don't have to feel guilty about it. Yeah. That guilt is literally what holds you back.
Yes.
So I would say, nurture your ego, take all the time you need, but growth is essential and you're going to do it anyway. So you might as well just get on the ball.
I love that. And I'm going to add to it real quick before we finish up.
Okay.
Everything in this world's an effort. Everything's an effort.
Yeah.
It don't matter what you freaking do.
Yeah.
And because this world is a challenge and it's always an effort, whether it's for the positive or negative, it behooves us then to put that effort towards things that give us a better outcome in life. It's easier said than done. You're right. Everything's easier said than done. It's too much work to eat healthier. Baloney. You're taking time, money, and resources to eat unhealthy. Flip the script and put that into eating better. Don't give me an excuse.
Exactly.
Everything's a freaking effort in life. And therefore, because everything is an effort, do we want to continue using our energy into things that where we're unhappy or temporarily maybe be a little uncomfortable, because we can be when we make changes. It's normal for that to happen. But at least the end result is a better outcome. I'd rather be temporarily a bit uncomfortable getting outside my bubble to be happier sustainably
in the long term.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I really appreciate your time. I really do. I respect and appreciate all my guests' time. I'm very
no worries. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna link April's information below. Psychic life coach. I'll put you're on Facebook. Are you on YouTube as well?
So I'll send you all those links. Yes, I've got my website. I've got my Facebooks. So I'll send you all that information. Absolutely.
Okay. And I will be doing a live with you
Yeah,
Saturday
we
next
get to
week.
come. We get to
That's right.
switch places.
That's
So
right.
next
Switch
week
places.
you'll get to come live with me on Facebook.
That's right. And don't worry. I'm not going to bring up Bigfoot, how he wipes his ass. I'll do a
No, you're fine. Like it's not going to bother me.
Yeah, no, I'm joking.
Those are your questions. You
I'm just
go for it.
I'm just playing. No, that's like the 10-year-old question. How does Bigfoot wipe his butt? Right. Anyway.
Hey, it's a great question, and honestly,
Well,
inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's like here's the joke. So the bear's in the forest doing his business, and there's a rabbit there doing his business too. And the bear asks the rabbit, "Do you have a problem with shit sticking to your fur?" The rabbit says no. So then the bear picks up the rabbit and wipes his ass with him. There you go.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Yeah, that's like a middle school joke. Anyways, and yeah, I know. All right. Well, April, thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
We can do this in the future. And everyone watching the video, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
If you subscribe to my channel, follow April Demille as well, and on Facebook. And if you want to hear us discuss some more stuff, it'll be Saturday next week. What time Saturday next week?
Saturday at 1 p.m.
1 p.m. 1 p.m. All right. Okay, April. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.